The Boston Celtics aren't just approaching a pivotal offseason. They're teetering on the edge of a franchise-altering cliff, and the landing could be brutal. While fans still cling to the memories of recent glory, behind the scenes, the front office is facing an uncomfortable truth. The championship window may already be closing, and Boston only has 9 days left to make a move that could define the next decade. But here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud: the Celtics might be trapped. Let's break this down. After a crushing loss to the New York Knicks and a brutal injury to Jayson Tatum that shook the foundation of this team, Boston now stares down a brutal combination of skyrocketing payroll and shrinking flexibility. With the first round of the 2025 NBA Draft looming on June 25th, the Celtics are facing a painful reality: either they act now or risk becoming irrelevant overnight. Boston owns the 28th overall pick, a seemingly modest asset on paper, but here's where things get strategic. That pick is possibly the last card the Celtics can play to escape the salary cap trap they've built around themselves, including it in a larger trade potentially tied to someone like Kristaps Porzingis. May be the only realistic option to free themselves from a bloated roster that's heavy on contracts, but light on flexibility. This isn't about adding depth or finding a role player in the late first round. This is about survival. This is about avoiding the kind of financial suffocation that paralyzes even elite teams. Not long ago, this team was labeled a favorite not just to reach the finals, but to win it all. Now, they're being forced into premature decisions because of injuries, tax penalties, and a roster built on win-now urgency. They don't have the luxury of waiting until free agency. The league's new collective bargaining rules are squeezing the life out of super teams, and Boston is the latest victim. And this leads us to a brutally uncomfortable question: should the Celtics actually blow it up before it gets worse? Because let's face it, without a fully healthy Jayson Tatum, Boston is no longer a Tier 1 contender. They can still win games, maybe even finish top 4 in the East, but is that enough? Or would it be smarter to think long-term, reset the books, and take the painful step of unloading expensive contracts now, even if it costs them short-term wins? Some analysts argue that the Celtics must cash out while their assets still have value. Porzingis, for example, is coming off another injury-plagued season, and his trade value may never be higher. If Boston waits too long, he becomes unmovable. Same with other big contracts that are aging faster than the team's core would like to admit. But what if they wait? What if they do nothing? Then Boston risks becoming what the Golden State Warriors were after their dynasty faded: inexpensive, aging roster with too many what-ifs and not enough rings to show for it. That kind of purgatory is the worst place to be in the NBA. Good enough to stay competitive, but never good enough to win it all again. And there's another explosive thought. What if Brad Stevens doesn't trust this core anymore? We've seen it before. Executives fall in love with their players until suddenly they don't. Maybe Stevens sees the writing on the wall. Maybe this team peaked in 2024 and what lies ahead is a slow descent masked by loyalty and nostalgia. That would explain the urgency. That would explain why this 9-day window isn't just about trades, it's about making sure Boston doesn't turn into a legacy brand chasing a past that won't return. Are the Celtics secretly shopping Jaylen Brown? One NBA team is willing to bet everything, including their future superstar. What if I told you the Celtics' most explosive offseason move isn't just a possibility, but may already be in motion? Behind closed doors, according to whispers growing louder across the league, Jaylen Brown might not be untouchable anymore. And there's one franchise reportedly willing to put all their chips on the table to pry him away: the San Antonio Spurs. Yes, the same Spurs who just landed a generational unicorn in Victor Wembanyama and hold the 2nd overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft. A team that once built a dynasty from quiet confidence and ruthless efficiency now finds itself in a position to make the boldest move of the decade. But here's the twist that no one's talking about. Would San Antonio actually trade their no to pick for Jaylen Brown? And if they do, would Boston say yes? It started subtly. Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated casually dropped a bombshell on the Kevin O'Connor show, saying, "Jaylen Brown is interesting if he's in play. That's someone I think San Antonio will look at and will go after. Not monitor, not inquire, but go after." And now the NBA world is holding its breath. Because if Jaylen Brown, fresh off a Finals MVP and one of the most controversial Supermax contracts in league history, is even remotely available, this offseason won't just be busy. It'll be explosive. Let's not kid ourselves. San Antonio isn't thinking like a lottery team anymore. Wemby changed everything. The 2nd pick is a valuable asset, Sure, but it's still a maybe. Jaylen Brown. That's a proven-to-way All-NBA star who can deliver wins now and ease the burden on Wemby before the pressure crushes him. Ask yourself this: how long can the Spurs afford to wait? Wembanyama's rookie year proved he's ready to compete today. Pairing him with a playoff-tested, high-motor star like Jaylen could instantly transform San Antonio from intriguing to terrifying. Defense, explosiveness, experience, swagger, all in one move. And unlike other stars rumored to be on the block, Jaylen fits their timeline. He's just 28, still ascending, already a champion, already a leader. Why would the Celtics even consider saying yes? On the surface, trading Jaylen Brown sounds insane. He just led the Celtics to a title. He was Finals MVP. He signed the richest contract in league history. But look deeper. That contract worth over $300 million is about to start this season. Boston's payroll is ballooning to unsustainable levels, and ownership is under pressure to dodge the brutal repeater tax penalties coming with the new CBA rules. Keeping Jaylen, Tatum, Porzingis, Holiday, and White all together may not be financially viable. So here's the uncomfortable truth fans aren't ready for. The Celtics might have to choose between loyalty and legacy. What if the most polarizing superstar of this generation nearly joined the team that just took over the NBA? It sounds like fiction, a fantasy cooked up by dreamers. But the truth is far stranger than fiction. Kevin Durant reportedly wanted to be traded to the Boston Celtics before the last trade deadline. Yes, that Kevin Durant, the one who burned bridges in OKC, shook up Golden State, and turned Brooklyn into a spectacle. He wanted Boston, and nobody saw it coming, according to Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports. Durant had his eyes on the Celtics or the Knicks as his preferred destinations during the mid-season chaos, but the deal never happened. The NBA's biggest what-if stayed. Exactly that, a what-if. But ask yourself this: why would Durant want to go to Boston in the first place? And why didn't it happen? Let's start with the first question because the answer is far more revealing than most are willing to admit. Durant's super team in the desert, already crumbling. The Phoenix Suns' all-in experiment has turned into a financial nightmare with zero playoff success to show for it. 3-ball dominant scorers, no real point guard, no bench, no culture, and a brutal new CBA that punishes. Exactly this type of roster construction. Durant, as always, was one step ahead. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw that Boston, not Phoenix, had what he never quite found since leaving Golden State: structure, leadership, defense, youth, and rings in reach. Add in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and a relentless front office, and you get the one thing Durant craves more than attention: a legacy-sealing championship. That's why he reportedly wanted the Celtics. Not for fun, not for headlines, for redemption. It's easy to say the money didn't work, and yes, Durant's $54.7 million price tag for the 2025-26 season makes things messy, but money can be moved. Contracts can be matched, picks can be sent. Stars like Drew Holiday and Porzingis could have been sacrificed if Brad Stevens truly wanted Durant. So maybe Boston didn't want him. Maybe they saw something the public didn't. Maybe they asked themselves, do we really want to dismantle a young, ascending, championship-winning core just to rent a 36-year-old superstar with a history of locker room drama and lower body injuries? Would Kevin Durant have fit next to Tatum and Brown? Or would he have divided a locker room that had finally found peace? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the kinds of conversations that keep G-Miz up at night. Because if Boston had made the trade and failed, the consequences could have been devastating financially, competitively, culturally. Think about it. KD has long held a reputation as someone who controls his own destiny. He forced his way out of Brooklyn. He picked Phoenix. He's not just a player, he's a kingmaker. So what if, when he made it known he wanted Boston, someone in the Suns front office said, absolutely not. We're not sending KD to the team that might beat us in the finals. After all, a Tatum-Durant-Brown trio might have been too powerful to allow, especially for a Western Conference team like Phoenix desperate to avoid humiliation. That kind of power shift wouldn't just shake up the standings, it would have redefined the NBA's balance of power for the next 2 years. And now we're left with a ticking clock and a lingering question. What if a trade involving a non-all-star just rewrote the entire value system of the NBA? That's exactly what just happened. Desmond Bane, a player who has never sniffed an all-star selection, just fetched a mind-melting trade package from the Orlando Magic for unprotected first-round picks, a pick swap, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Cole Anthony. That's not just a blockbuster, that's an arms race. And for the Boston Celtics, That deal should have front office phones ringing off the hook. Because if Desmond Bane can command that kind of return, what the hell is Jaylen Brown worth? Now, what about Derrick White, who just earned all defensive honors and shot nearly 39% from 3? The NBA trade market didn't just shift, it exploded. And no one stands to benefit more than Brad Stevens and the Celtics. So if Bane fetches 4 picks, a pick swap, and to rotation guys, then Brown's value, you're talking 5 to 6 first-rounders, a young blue-chip prospect, and at least 1 current starter. And here's the twist. With Tatum recovering from injury and the Celtics flirting with cap disaster, Boston may be more open than ever to fielding offers, not because they want to, but because the league just offered them a cheat code. White has quietly become one of the most complete guards in the NBA. Defense, IQ, shot creation, efficiency, he checks every box. He's the type of player that winning teams beg for at the trade deadline. And now we have proof that the league is overpaying for role players with upside. Let's ask the uncomfortable question. Has the market gone completely insane if a guy who's never made an all-star game is now worth the kind of package once reserved for MVP candidates? What does that do to competitive balance? Front offices are overcorrecting out of desperation. Everyone sees Boston's title. Everyone knows the clock is ticking. So teams are going all in without breaks, without caution. Orlando's move isn't about winning in the long term. It's about exploiting the Celtics' injury window right now. And they weren't the first look at New York, who sacrificed their flexibility to pair Brunson with Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges. And they won't be the last. Because if you're a GM and your job is on the line, and your team's been in purgatory for 5 years, you pay the price, no matter how absurd. Which leads to one final twist. What if Brad Stevens, who's quietly one of the most cold-blooded decision-makers in the league, decides now is the moment to cash out? Not because he wants to rebuild, but because the value of his players will never be higher. Boston reloads, stays relevant, still has Tatum, still competes in the East while stockpiling assets for another dynasty run. Sounds crazy? Maybe, but Brad Stevens already pulled off a heist with the smart trade. He already fleeced the Bucks for Holiday. He doesn't blink in the face of unpopular decisions.